My name's Eleanor, and I'm from the Down Syndrome Research Foundation. And today we're going to talk about teaching reading to individuals with developmental disabilities. I think we often forget how complicated the reading process is. We use our eyes to discriminate between certain words and letters and to recognize the words that we know. We use our ears to discriminate between sounds. We use our memory to remember parts of stories, to remember what the meaning of words are. And we use our judgment to ask questions as we read. I think we often take for granted how complicated and how amazing the ability of our brain is. Often learners with developmental disabilities don't get that true opportunity to read and write for meaning. They're often stuck focusing on writing letters, recognizing letters, or doing boring phonics worksheets. What I like about the approach that we're going to talk about today is that it immediately allows learners to start reading true, meaningful sentences right from the start. Individuals with Down syndrome have poor short-term memory and poor auditory memory, which is remembering sounds that we hear verbally. They often, throughout their childhood and their adult life, will have fluctuating hearing loss, and in addition may have deficits in auditory processing. Auditory processing is just how we process the information that we hear. How this might present itself is having individuals having difficulty with discriminating between different sounds, blending sounds together, keeping the order of sounds in their short-term memory. And all of this affects phonological awareness, which simply put is understanding that language is made up of individual sounds. All of these are key to being a successful reader.
Both auditory memory and working memory are important to reading acquisition for all individuals, including individuals with Down syndrome. But because these are all part of the language system, this can be a particular area of difficulty for people with Down syndrome. Auditory memory has to do with just remembering information that's presented auditorily. Working memory, though, involves combining information, integrating and using information in memory for problem solving and for understanding. And so that is particularly effortful for an individual.
Take the example of trying to read the word cat. It's a simple three-letter word, but in order to do so, your brain is using multiple processes. You have to first remember that C says K, as you move on to A that says A, and then once you get to T, remember that you had the C sound and the A sound in that correct order, blend those letters together, and then remember what the word cat means.
If you're reading a passage of text, you need to have information from earlier parts of the text to be integrated in memory so that it makes sense and you can draw meaning from the text. Because this is a difficult task for individuals with Down syndrome, this can really impede their progress in reading and make reading a more difficult task for them if they're relying on auditory information alone.
The phonological approach to teaching reading focuses on teaching each sound of the alphabet. You can imagine someone with a deficit in their auditory processing or difficulties with their short-term memory, how this could be a more difficult approach to pick up right away. The great debate between using phonics or the whole word approach to reading still continues today. But what I like about this workshop and what we're going to talk about today is that it's a dual approach. It uses the best of both sides in one. Verbal learners with clear speech might have success with a phonics-based approach. But for other learners, starting with high meaning sight words might really draw them into the reading process because they're motivated to learn these words that have high meaning to them and their personal experiences. No matter what you begin to teach, we know that individuals with Down syndrome have strengths in visual memory and recognition memory. Therefore, verbal instruction should always be enhanced with a visual support. This could be a picture, the written word, sign language, anything that gives the individual more time for processing and less time or less reliance on their short-term working memory.
Another reason why we may use visual supports when teaching language and literacy concepts is that it decreases the attention and memory demands. This can even work well with learning conversation scripts. So, for example, a question like, "What did you do last night?" can be really hard for a person with developmental disabilities because of memory and expressive language problems. But if I show them some choices, sometimes this just gets the memory going a little bit so that they're able to say, "Oh, that's right, I had dinner with my family last night, and then I watched a movie."
Patricia Oland came up with the concept of teaching high-meaning sight words. A high-meaning sight word is a word that has big meaning to a student. So if a student is into baseball, or Hannah Montana, or Justin Bieber, start with those words because that's what's going to get them into reading. They're going to be motivated to want to read those words. The Olin approach to acquisition of sight words goes as follows: match, select, name. We'll go over these throughout the workshop, but the focus of this approach is sight word recognition, not decoding. It's one-to-one teaching method so that you can control the environment and start to create an errorless learning environment for your student. So what is errorless learning? Well, often if you think back, you probably remember mistakes that you've made. And those are the strongest memories we often have because of the emotion and the anxiety attached to that memory. The goal of errorless learning is to remove anxiety at all costs and to try to provide the opportunity for the learner to have success right from the start, to be correct on that first answer. Some ways you can do this are by giving the learner two options for a choice. Avoid asking open-ended questions. Avoid saying, "No, that's wrong." Try to give the learner visual cues. Point to the word that you are saying so that they feel confident and have success right from the start. Let's take a look at the first step in the acquisition of sight words. The first step is matching. The student must match a word on a flashcard to the matching word on a stationary grid. I always start with 4 words, but sometimes a student might be having trouble at the start, and therefore start with 2 words because you want success right from the start.
Sweater.
Shirt. Dress. Coat. Okay. Cars. Fast. Well done. Race. Help.
Be sure to assess that your student knows how to match. This should be done with a solid black shape and having your student match that solid black shape onto the matching shape on a stationary grid. Once this is set, you're ready to go.
Can you put that on the same? Oh, well done. Good girl. Okay, look at this one. Oh, can you put it on the same? Where does it go? Yes, you are right.
See?
Oh, well done. It's a shape.
The task is matching, and you want your students' focus and attention only on that one task. Try not to imbue the task with too much verbal instruction. Don't say, "This is the word baseball." Put baseball on baseball. Instead, say match or same. By not giving too much verbal instruction, you're not distracting the student from the focus, the task of matching. C. Excellent. Leader.
Linda.
Excellent.
I am a Linda.
You are the king.
Fast. Cars. Race.
The second stage in sight word acquisition is selecting. The student must select a word from an array on a table.
Dress.
Square.
Coat. Sweater. And shirt. Thank you.
Give me members.
Members.
Nice. Give me the. Perfect. If you see that the student might be going for the wrong word, use a visual cue. This again will accommodate errorless learning.
Let's try again. Give me diet pop. Give me eat. Excellent. Nice reading.
The final stage in the acquisition of sight words is naming. This is the most exciting part because this is when the student actually reads the word. I always try to reduce the anxiety of the student by giving them the flashcards so that they can choose the order of the words that they read.
Sweater. Shut. Oh, fantastic, Taylor. That was really fast. Help. Well done. And can you read this one for me one more time? Fast.
I can't see
Nice.
the Lunda team.
So remember, the process is match 3 times. Each time, mix up the word order. Select 3 times. And again, change the order of the words that are on the table. And finally, name once or twice and always allow the students to hold the cards and have them change or choose the order of the words they read. Pace is very important when introducing new words and reviewing old words. You want to make sure that the students learn the words, but you want to maintain their interest, so keep it fast and always introduce new words each week. Once a student has demonstrated that they can recognize a word, so usually they've read it 3 times consistently correct, it's important to introduce high-frequency words. High-frequency words are words that we use frequently in our language. Common ones include the, and, is. These are words that are essential to building complete sentences. Some people call them joining words. Once your student has recognized or shown the ability to recognize 4 words, it's really important that they're able to use those words and read them in complete sentences. According to Libby Cumin, children with Down syndrome often have difficulty with syntax, which is just another word for grammar or sentence structure. The more visual practice they have at looking at complete sentences and reading those sentences, the more comfortable and confident they're going to be in speaking in complete sentences.
Having solid underlying literacy skills will improve the language skills of a person with developmental disabilities. So a good reader will probably have the ability to say longer, more varied sentences with more clear speech sounds and more varied vocabulary. So really, when teaching people with developmental disabilities, language and literacy learning are inextricably linked.
It's a house too big for a mouse. Too big for a house. Too is small.
Often students with Down syndrome are really good at learning vocabulary and nouns, at naming things. They usually need more practice at inserting and using joining words and verbs, which are usually included in high-frequency words. The more practice a student can have reading complex sentences, and as we increase that complexity, we hope that that will transfer over into their language and increase the complexity of the language that they're using.
Okay, Taylor, can you read it one more time for me?
She
Do you want to point?
is wearing a pink and blue shirt and pink shoes.
Oh, lovely, Taylor.
High-function words, or these high-frequency words, are taught in context, in sentences that contain the high-meaning words so that students understand how they work in everyday language that they would be using. Often these high-frequency words are taught as essential vocabulary, which can often be dry and boring and abstract. Some nouns to introduce include family names, friends, pets, preferred items like foods, places, and sports. Pronouns and possessive pronouns could include I, my, and you. Some verbs to introduce include like, can, is, go, eat, see, put, don't. Prepositions and articles to include would be the, to, here, on, in, and this. Simple sentences can be created immediately if a student knows the words I and like. Begin by modeling these sentences for your student to copy with their flashcards. Provide the student with necessary words for them to create their own sentences and really emphasize word order. Nice. And read it out. What's it say?
Spider-Man can.
Almost. What's that one? Saves.
Spider-Man save friends.
Good. Okay. Over time and with practice, this leads to more independence and creativity in sentence construction.
Angerman is the king of sea.
Good. And remember that little tip I gave you? What do we have to put in front of C? King of the sea. Nice job. When building sentences, keep a stack of blank flashcards near so that you can quickly add new words that your student wants to add to their sentences. Always count the number of words in a sentence and praise the student for making longer and longer sentences. 7-word sentence, buddy. Nice. As an extension, you can have your student type up their sentence and find an image to go with the sentence. Try using humor when you're teaching grammar. Make silly sentences and see if the student can identify why the sentence is silly. This is also a great way to test reading comprehension. A typical reading session should start with 10 minutes of match, select, name, 10 minutes of reinforcement activities, 10 minutes of sentence building with those words, and then 15 to 20 minutes of reading a story that the child chooses. Let's talk about these reinforcement activities. The whole goal of these is that they are fun, but at the same time the student's reviewing and using the words that you're focusing on. Any of the most common games that we regularly play can be turned into a word game simply.
You got 1. In, good. 2. What does that one say?
Go.
Good, keep going.
Yes. The.
Let's take a look at a few of the games that we enjoy. First of all, take an old Jenga game. Take the blocks apart and write all the sight words or the target words that you're trying to teach your student. Every time they pull off the block, they have to read the word and put it on top.
What?
Another common game that we often play is Twister. This can be adapted into a word game by just labeling or putting the flashcards on each circle on the mat. You spin the dial and whatever color is pointed to, the student has to read the word on that color. Eric, put your left hand on cousin. Where's cousin? In the yellow, exactly. Good. And can you put your other hand on like? Nice. Another game we like to play is Go Fish. This just involves you making a few more copies of the flashcards so that a student can collect a pair of them in the card game. Another great game is Bingo. Bingo can easily be turned into a word game by grabbing a blank bingo board and writing the target words on the grid while you call out the words and the student has to see if that word is on their bingo card. Finally, even a game like bowling can be turned into a word game.
Go, Taylor, go! Excellent. What did you get? Christmas. Perfect. Okay, let's get some more.
Another favorite game that my students like is called SWAT. Go to a dollar store and buy some fly swatters for $1 each. Lay out the cards on the table that you're focusing on, and as you read out the word, the student has to swat that word with their fly swatter. You can take turns, or if you have more than one student, play in teams to see who can hit the word the fastest. Oh, nice. Okay, you found it. Okay, Chris And Eric, can you find the word cousin? Cousin, you see there? Nice. Some of my favorite games have come from the website that Adrian Bruce has made. On this website, you can go and print off blank boards for all his word games that he's created. One game that's a favorite among my students is called 4 in a Row. The student is given a grid with 6 columns with all their target words on the grid. You roll a dice, and whatever number comes up, the student must read that word on the grid. If he reads it correctly, he gets to place one of his markers on the grid with the goal of getting 4 in a row. Another reinforcement activity that I like is called Make and Break. All you need are letter cards and a piece of paper or a whiteboard. Set out the appropriate letters for your student to spell the word that you're focusing on. Give them the letters and write the word that you want them to spell on the board. Okay, so I'm going to give you the next word, and it looks like this. It's your word family. Excellent. Voila! C'est perfect. Nice. Okay. Now, erase the word. Take one last look at the order. Remember those letters? You got it memorized, Chris? Okay, break it up. Okay, let's see if you can do it again. Yeah, switch them around. Perfect. Nice. Another popular movement game among our students is lily pads. Make a path of lily pads and write the sight words you are targeting. As your student reads each word, have them hop on it.
That.
In addition to fun reinforcement activities, another motivating thing you can do with your students is create personalized reading materials. These are materials that you design for your student about their interests. One really popular one that my students like are I Like books. This is an opportunity for you and your student to make a book together about everything your student likes. And what's great is that on each page there's that repetitive sentence structure, I like. So by the end of the book, after your student has read it, they immediately recognize those 2 high-frequency words, I and like. One of my students was really interested in superheroes. So him and I made a superhero book. In this book, he was able to choose the pictures and images of all his favorite superheroes, and we created sentences for each picture.
And action. This is
Chloe.
Corey.
Do you remember her last
Offers.
name? Sullivan.
Severin.
Good.
She is friends with Clark Kent.
By the end of a few months, Shane could read the whole book from start to finish because he was motivated to read about these characters and his main interest, superheroes.
One more time.
I go the
Like lightning. Good.
green.
These personalized reading materials can be simply made on Word. All you need to do is type out the sentence and import an image from Google that you and your student find together. Make sure you record the progress of your students' reading achievements. Over a couple weeks, try to assess which words your students reading correctly. If you notice that your students read a word 3 to 4 times consistently correct, it's time to put that word in their word bank. A word bank is any container that you use to put the words in that your student knows and has put into their long-term memory. What I like to do is I pick out pieces of paper and write a $sign on them, and every time they've started to read a word consistently correct, I write that word down and I put it in their word bank. What's great about this is that the student can watch their vocabulary grow, and they kind of equate it to being rich. The more words they know, the richer they are. I try to review the words in their word bank kind of once a month. That way we're still maintaining progress and gaining momentum, but at the same time checking to make sure that they remember the words that we've introduced. Once your student has a sight word bank of 50 to 100 words, it's the perfect time to start introducing phonics. Use their high-meaning sight words to introduce beginning consonant sounds. Set up an alphabet scrapbook where the student finds words and uses their high-meaning sight words to locate them and place them on the corresponding page. Also, what you can do is sort out or put out all the flashcards on a table and have your student choose the words that begin with that same sound that you give them. Remember, focus on the sound that the letters make. It's not important for the students to memorize the names of each letter. What's most important is that they can give the sound that the letter produces. Since computers are so motivating for students, go and use these websites that give varied practice in phonics activities. Word families are also a good way to start introducing some phonological awareness to your students. As we said before, often students with Down syndrome or other developmental disabilities have difficulty with auditory discrimination. One way to overcome this deficit is to allow your students to look at word families.
Many literacy concepts are inherently auditory, but if we can actually show them the rhyme, such as this one, so you can see that all the words have an at sound at the end, this is now a permanent signal that the student with Down syndrome or autism or developmental disability can look at rather than a fleeting auditory signal, which is difficult to process.
That brings us to the end of our workshop. Thank you so much for joining us, and please, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact us. If you can remember one thing from this workshop, remember that the most important thing in learning how to read and teaching reading is that both people are having fun.